Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Okay, good. So I can hear myself pretty good. Let me. Alright, get rid of the control screen bullshit. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Evil Antonio, aka Antonio Malo. Now going as DJ Uno, but it's already the same for me. You know, just trying to get more Puerto Rican with the names as we go. Anyway, I'm pretty sleepy. I just took my pills for the evening. I have bipolar disorder, if y'all don't know. So when I get kind of crazy, that's a little explanation, but not quite all of it. For those that don't know, I was gone for a good period of time there. Good old period of time. Part of it was me moving out of my folks' home to Fort Worth and having a little adventure, what you who's it up there. And part of it was just a whole bunch of other stuff that's way too long to get into now. But as you all may know, I originally got into this channel from the perspective of a filmmaker looking to do my own little film studies 101 course where I would go through and try to build up my film knowledge by going through the extent of film history. But YouTube and various other things have made that kind of hard to do, especially since YouTube is just such a dick with copyright. I mean, god damn, you put a 2-second clip of a video in there and you are done for, son. I mean, it's insane. I can't even make money off of videos on this channel anymore, which was part of the reason why I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna make a whole new channel, which is what the DJ Uno channel is for those of y'all that have gone over there and given it a try. It's a pretty good channel. I haven't done too much on there in the past day or two, but that's because I've been doing remixes on the side, building up my DJ muscles, if you will. So today, what I'm going to try to do is do a little reviewathon, so to speak, just an hour long thing where I go through, I review some of the past few films that I've seen and talk about them in the really long form style that I used to do. Um, Similar to like the double feature madnesses or just the old vlog styles where I would just go on and talk about a movie for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, going into the symbolism and shit that I saw with it. So I have 3 movies today that I'm sure I could talk about. Um, 2 of those being the recent DC films that have entered into that oeuvre, and the other one being Hail Caesar, an interesting Coen Brothers movie. But I mean, all their movies are really good and interesting, so there's not going to be much that I'll say there except for it was good and interesting. I might talk a little bit about the fantastical nature of it towards the end, about how it just gets kind of it kind of pulls one of those endings that almost feels like the ending in Brazil, where you think it's like, is this all a dream at this point? Because like 90% of this shit just seems too fantastical to be real, and except they don't do what Brazil did and bring it back to reality at the last minute. They just keep going with the fantasy and say, no, we're gonna indulge in this, and that's very Hollywood, in a sense. And since this movie was all about kind of reveling in that glory age of Hollywood, it definitely fits with that. Now, as I've said, since YouTube be copyright striking me like a motherfucker, I'm just gonna play some Mountain Blade Warband in the background just to kind of give you something to look at, since I'm not really going to even attempt to show a film clip since I know it'll get struck. And the thing is, if you're doing these Google Hangouts and you get struck with a copyright claim, you can't do the Google Hangouts anymore. So they've made it to where you can't even like live stream shit if you don't do it just right. And that's why a lot of reviewers like, for example, one that I know of is the League of Super Critics, the Nostalgia Critic. he actually redid the way that he does his videos now because of how many copyright strikes they were getting. And now you'll notice on his videos, he doesn't actually show clips from the video. He just reacts those clips using himself and his little cast of actors on staff. And that's going to be the future of YouTube, if there even is a future of YouTube. I mean, I've experimented with YouTube Red on my other account, and there is some real potential there as far as YouTube Red goes, but I just feel like they really got to get over this. They got to figure out something with the copyright shit. That or we as YouTube creators got to get on the ball and just say, you know what, fuck it, unionize, and then put an end to that bit right there. But I don't know if other YouTube creators are even thinking along those lines as me. So this is my character. Nothing crazy. Kabar Singe from what the fuck was it? Chole. Fun little villain character. And I'm gonna turn that down right now. There we go, that's better. Okay. So let's first talk about Batman v Superman, the much maligned film that I wouldn't say it kicked off the DC cinematic universe because technically Man of Steel did that, and Batman v Superman builds on a lot of what Man of Steel set up. Even though I didn't see Man of Steel, I went into it completely not knowing that. But I was surprised in that I actually kind of liked the film. I'm not gonna say it's as good as some of the best Marvel movies out there, but what I will say is for a Zack Snyder movie, for a guy that can be kind of hit or miss, and that kind of has trouble doing female characters, and has a lot of problems with everything except visuals, I thought it was a fairly, oh boy, I thought it was a fairly well done piece of work. I would go as far as to say that it was his best film to date, which is saying a lot. I mean, 300, I don't think has aged as well with time. I think a lot of that stuff that seemed badass and then kind of looks like a bromance power fantasy at this point. That are just straight on gay porn with the amount of naked, oily men. Mm, yummy. So let's talk about some of the things that I really liked in Batman v Superman. For one, I thought it did have some pretty strong female characters. The senator from Kentucky, played by, I believe it was Jodie Foster. Was it Jodie Foster or just somebody that looked a lot like her? I thought she was a really interesting character. She played an interesting, I'm going to say interesting a lot. I need to stop that. She played a pretty important role in the film, kind of being the foil to Lex Luthor Jr., who I will refer to as Lex Luthor Jr. because he wasn't Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor's kid. And I think there are some important critiques and commentaries about millennial generations and just about how people perceive um, my generation of people, how people perceive the youth nowadays. I think there are some important critiques in his character there that I thought were somewhat interesting. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the Batman character himself, because while everybody talks about how he's such a good Batman and he's played so well by Ben Affleck, and I'll definitely give you that. I think he played an excellent Bruce Wayne, and I think the action sequences that were shot for him as Batman are just some really good Batman action sequences. And I think you also have to remember that Christian Bale, as good as people like those movies, Christian Bale is not a very good Batman. I mean, there's a reason that became known as the Raspy Voice trilogy because he was really kind of a joke as far as Batman goes. And he was more kind of a critique of the Bush administration, especially in the second film that everybody loves so much, than he was anything else. Come on, hit that motherfucker. I'm shooting over his head or am I hitting him? I'm definitely shooting under him on that one. So what I thought was interesting about Batman is while he did do actual detecting and stuff, he kind of felt like a giant meathead. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but you realize he played like he was like literally the last fucking guy to figure out what Lex Luthor's big plan was. He was literally a pawn of Lex Luthor Jr. for almost the entire movie. Superman finds out before him. The first one to find out is actually Lois Lane. And so if you want to talk about how useless Lois Lane was and how, the only thing she was there for was to throw away the kryptonite spear and then go back and get it, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because, she doesn't know who Batman, I mean, she might know who Batman is in terms of that, but she just walks in on her boyfriend getting beaten up by Batman. You know, the thing you're going to try to do is take this giant weapon away from him because you don't know if these guys are planning to fight more or what. So I wouldn't blame her for that. If you want to say that there was some bad story construction there, in that they had her dump it away and then them like need it right again, definitely you could say something about that. But regardless of any of all that, she is the first one to figure out what Lex Luthor Jr. is doing. She's the first one to kind of put it together of, oh, okay, he's trying to get Batman to kill Superman because he just really doesn't like metahumans, which kind of fits in with the Lex Luthor zeitgeist. I mean, Lex Luthor has always been a guy that just hates Superman for being Superman. I mean, there's his character doesn't. I'm not gonna say he doesn't make a whole lot of sense because he is a badass character, I guess. And I'm not as privy to the animated series with him. I was more of a Batman the animated series guy. But I have read some Superman Elseworld stories, like the Red Son of Krypton in particular, and some other stuff that are not like Batman heavy stuff that are like pure Superman works. And I think and that brings me to my next point, which is if you treat that film as an Elseworld story, which you kind of should do with the cinematic universe, in the same way that Marvel's cinematic universe is an Elseworlds to the Marvel, it's actually an alternate universe. I think the comic book Earth is Earth 616 or some shit, and in oh boy, not gonna go down there. Follow some boys down there. If you in the movie universe is a completely different number Earth, so it follows a completely different universe than the other. 2, 1, 2. Okay, there we go. We got it back. All right. So I don't know where that broke up, but I was just kind of rambling there anyway. So yeah, long short of that, I think the females are some of the best that he's done. They're not half naked, waving samurai swords. There are two good characters there that actually do stuff. Lois Lane, as I said, is the first one to figure out Lex Luthor Jr.'s plan, and Jodie Foster is just always interesting to watch. She kind of had there were kind of the trappings back to her Silence of the Lamb role with that one. It really kind of reminded me of. And I should probably make sure that's actually Jodie Foster, shouldn't I? Might be a good idea. But the two female characters I thought were really well done, even though maybe some of the story constructions around them could have been done better. I know people complained about the Granny's Peach tea scene and all that, but that could maybe be more of a slam on the Jesse Eisenberg character than anybody else. So, and that, oh, Holly Hunter. Okay. Holly Hunter. I don't know why I thought Jodie Foster. She kind of looks like her, though. Oh, she was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Okay. Sorry, the Holly Hunter character, who is playing like a Jodie Foster, like to the T, Silence of the Lambs type thing. And I think that does go to what I'm talking about here with the Lex Luthor character, because he's not Lex Luthor, he's Lex Luthor Jr. Lex Luthor is a guy that is already dead and in the ground by the time this movie starts, and Lex Luthor Jr. has acquired his father's things, and in many ways he's, I would guess, a much more inept version of the Lex Luthor that we probably would have seen had it actually been Lex Luthor. But for me, it's kind of easy to divorce him from Lex Luthor because he is a junior off the bat. They can always go back and say, oh my God, we found Lex Luthor. He was off hiking in the Alps for some shit. They could always do something like that, or bring him back with cloning or some crazy shit. And then that will be an excuse for us to get the Walter White kind of Lex Luthor in, which I would have liked to see, since he was one of the original people in the casting, if I'm not mistaken. There were rumors of his name jumping around before they picked Jesse Eisenberg. Now, he definitely rubbed me the wrong way in certain spots. There were definitely spots where I didn't quite get his character at all, and definitely some cringeworthy spots. For me, the speech scene where he's just kind of rattling off shit and he can't even remember what his train of thought is really kind of irked me. But I think in that there is a critique of, I would say, how older people view the younger generation. And in particular, I'm talking more about how Gen Xers view millennials, because at this point, the baby boomers are so old that it's like they're getting to the point of irrelevancy as far as the movie going audience. The main theme right now is, in my opinion, Gen Xers the versus the millennials, and I do think you see some headbutting there, as opposed to how the two sides view different aspects of each other. And I think that was kind of represented in the Jesse Eisenberg character, because for me, especially when they shaved his head at the end of the film, I got a lot of echoes of the what was it, the Oklahoma City bomber, and really kind of crazy, and like the Columbine kids, like those really crazy youth that just kind of scared the shit out of America in like the 80s and 90s, where it was like, man, we have no idea what these kids are doing at this point. They are like way darker and way more crazy than we thought. We chalked it up to them just being goofy, gangly fucking teenagers. And here they are pulling some devious, evil shit that we can't even fathom, that we thought was beyond the pale as far as devious, evil shit in America. And I think there is I don't know if I think that's more of a Gen Xer looking in on millennials at this point. Because with millennials, I think there's more of a mindset of so much of that stuff being normalized at this point in a regular American sized society. I mean, we have a mass shooting every like Tuesday at this point. It's it's really bad, and so um, I can kind of understand what they were going with them. I don't know if it necessarily worked, but he's out of the picture now, so we don't have to worry about him coming soon to a theater near you. I mean, he's locked up in a maximum security. I don't know if they'll bring him back for Man of Steel 2, the official Man of Steel 2, especially with the negative fan reaction that we got from him already. It was just one of those things. But actually, I didn't find his plan all that great either. I mean, it was just really kind of convoluted and confusing. And I think the honest trailers for that really does a good job of spelling that out. So Jesse Eisenberg admittedly is a weakness in the film. And, you can maybe say Doomsday was for that. Although I think for that, again, that's a lot of people looking in and going, oh my God, they wasted so much good comic book material with that stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, that's your opinion, man. Like I know a pretty good critic that I listen to, the movie Bob. For him, that Superman dies and lives was not a good story. It was the beginning of the end of comic books in the '80s, because that's where a lot of like downhill trends started with that comic book. And so for me, as somebody that wasn't around during either of those times, that just has, is going by people say so on those things, I'm not too tripping hard about it, because Doomsday is a character that comes back multiple times in comic books. I mean, the whole point of him is that he can't be killed, especially not the same way twice. And so there are interesting ways you could bring him back, and you could bring him back with the similar look that he had in the comic books now too. You don't have to bring him back as the fucking cave troll. You can bring him back with the big spiky things. Maybe they're giant kryptonite spikes or some shit. Since he got killed with kryptonite this time. Um, and that would do more to kind of set up his character, because if you remember in the comic books, he was originally made on an alien planet, and there's a whole backstory there about him being killed and killed and killed like thousands of times over. And if you're just a filmmaker and you're looking at how am I going to express that on a screen, that's kind of hard to do. Especially since you do kind of need a unifying force for them to fight after they're done punching up each other. I mean, how boring would the movie be if after Batman and Superman stopped fighting, they were like, oh, well, you want to get an espresso now? And that's the end of the movie, is them eating fucking shawarma. I mean, it worked in the Avengers, but I doubt it would fit the tone and everything that they were going for in Batman v Superman. It just kind of wouldn't work. They need something like some kind of big unifying force to go fight. And since the whole death of Superman winds up becoming a catalyst for the creation of the Suicide Squad in the movie Suicide Squad, it's kind of hard to balk at that choice now, since it was set up for later films. And you could say, oh, well, that setup was shoehorned in. And yes, but we have that same critique with a lot of the more mediocre Marvel films is, oh my God, they're putting too much setup for next films. And these films tend to just blend together. And for me, that's more of a sign of people noticing the bubble. And when people notice the bubble, that's not a very far away point from the bubble collapsing. And so I just thought it was, like I said, I thought it was the best Zack Snyder film that he's done. Considering that a lot of people don't like The Watchmen, I happen to like it, but a lot of people hate it. Especially since it supposedly gets rid of some of the more salient critiques in the book. It's definitely better than Sucker Punch, and I think it's better than 300, especially since we've had some distance between 300 and now, and so that movie doesn't quite look as good with age, like I was saying. Um, And hey, the Batman stuff was pretty well done. I actually thought Superman was pretty interesting. I mean, a lot of people talked about him being too mopey and shit. But it's like, look, if the entire world is taking a big old shit on you right now, I doubt you would be all smiles and rainbows too. Um, and that's just kind of how it is. So that's my thing with Batman v Superman. A surprisingly good film, but overall still a mixed bag, which is to be expected with Zack Snyder films. I mean, he's never a perfect pitch hitter, you know. So that is what it is. He is kind of a polarizing filmmaker. So there's that. Now let's talk Suicide Squad, because I've also seen that movie. I thought it was really well done. People complain about the Enchantress being a lame villain, and I can kind of see that. But for me, the main thing with her is that she's tied in intimately with Rick Flag's character setup, and so at least they put some of that in there, which you don't get in a lot of other lame supervillain finales. I mean, what kind of setup did Ronan have for the other characters when you think about it? I mean, he set up a little teaser with Thanos, and he's like a minor. He's not even really set up for Gamora or the other one, because they're daughters of Thanos that are just working for Ronan. So he was just big blue guy. And so I think if you're comparing Enchantress to Big Blue Guy number one or Big Blue Guy number two, I would still pick Enchantress over them. And if yeah, I would. And I mean, you could talk about her, just being another big 3 act finale, but there were some really cool parts in that third act, especially seeing El Diablo go full Diablo. I thought that was amazing, and I really hope he's not dead, because that was like the first Latino character I've seen in a superhero movie in like ever. I don't think we've seen one that wore like the Latino pride on his chest as much as Diablo did. And he was a really cool character in that he was well, I mean, you had a little bit of it with Will Smith, but Will Smith still didn't mind killing. It was just he didn't mind it. He had a problem with it when his daughter was around. So he wasn't all too concerned about it. It seemed kind of, I wouldn't say it was a little tacked on, because there was that childhood thing. But Diablo, I think, really had that kind of, he really had some inner turmoil as far as a character goes. He really had that kind of Shakespearean tragedy character, like almost like a Hamlet style thing, where he wants to do something, but he's constantly plagued with kind of indecision over whether or not it's the right thing to do. And he was the only one in the group that actually took a full stand of no, killing under any circumstances is wrong. Not just, hey, we shouldn't kill this girl because she'd be advantageous to us for what we're doing. He was like full on, no, I think killing is just bad, bad. And he didn't wear the moniker of bad people with pride like some of the other characters did. Oh boy, characters far away. Oh, did I hit him? No. Oh, I ain't gonna hit them. I'm just gonna. So that's a little bit of what I thought of Suicide Squad. I did like Will Smith, of course, but newsflash there. I think everybody liked him. Harley Quinn, I thought was pretty cool. Um, I don't think she. I think there have been better Harley Quinns, like Batman animated series. Harley Quinn will always be the Harley Quinn for me, since she was the one that started Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was invented on that TV show, and just I this one had some kind of like outwardly cheesy moments that were kind of like too much of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge for me. Say no more type deal, where it just kind of gets, okay, enough already. We know you're a bad girl. You like being bad. Come on, like go put some clothes on already. That And I think there's literally one thing where she's like, "We're bad guys, remember?" And it was totally one of those moments that was made for the trailer, but it doesn't really sit well with me during the film. One thing that I did find interesting about the film, though, and this is something I haven't seen talked about too much, and maybe it's just the copy I was looking at was an obvious bootleg, so I didn't get to see the color palette as much. But I noticed that the color palette was a lot more skewed towards green and purple than it was towards a blue and teal and orange, which is what a lot of people have been bemoaning in action films and big blockbusters in general, is that they're too much in love with the teal and orange color palette. And this one was far more green and purple. I mean, Enchantress is all green. You get a lot of green and purple with the Joker and Harley Quinn both. It was a kind of a refreshing thing for the eyes visually. And I do wonder if that will shake up the notion that you have to do teal and orange. Maybe that'll give more filmmakers more freedom to experiment with other different types of color palettes that aren't in the teal and orange dynamic. So that's kind of just more on like the camera technical aspects. It really doesn't have anything to do with the story plot aspects or the character acting or directing sides of it. So, but take that what you will. Um, Captain Boomerang, I think next to El Diablo was my favorite character. I do think it would have been better if at the end of the movie when they're like, anybody got last request, I would have loved to see him like pull the pink unicorn out of his shirt again and go, can I keep him at least? Something like that I think would have been a better closing to his character arc than just throwing him back in solitary and seeing him yelling at people again, because that's pretty much exactly where he started up, you know. And so many of the other characters, I feel we got to see them advance a little bit as the plot went on. We got to see them kind of change and grow as people. And Captain Boomerang just kind of stayed decidedly comic relief. And for a comic relief that was as good as he was, and for a role that people are saying is like finally the role that makes them see why Jai Courtney is so popular, I really feel like something like that, just to kind of bring that back, give him some kind of closing. It's just some kind of cute closer, I think would have been better than kind of the tragedy that he wound up in. Because while solitary is kind of joked about in that film, solitary confinement is actually really torturous and it fucks with people's heads. And so knowing what I know about solitary confinement, it does make it a little bit difficult for me to see that kind of stuff, because even like people that have done dirt like that, solitary confinement is cruel and unusual punishment. But this has nothing to do with the movie, really. This is more my personal politics getting into it. So take that what you will. Reinforcements already. Oh boy. Let me give them a minute to get up here then. There we go. Oh, y'all are taking your time. And new enemies. Yeah, get up here already, guys. Come on. Charge, fuckers. Get up there. Yeah, never be the first one in, especially when you're at half health. Plus, in native, if I die, like the whole thing gets shut down. I can't just sit there and watch it, which you can do in some other mods of the game. That has nothing to do with Suicide Squad, so a little bit more turtleish in native. I've made some good money here. And this will give me some renown, and I just got to build up my right to roll. Yeah, Suicide Squad, good. I liked it. Bueno. Dare I say, it's on the verge of being muy bueno as far as my score goes. I had a good time with it. I didn't think the end was as bad as people said, although kind of like what I would say was almost like the part that I didn't like was not so much the Enchantress finale as it was the weird, we've got to go into this building that has Amanda Waller in it, and then we get to go to Enchantress. That kind of smacks of like video game logic. You have the final objective here, but first you got to go do this other random thing that we're just going to shoehorn in because we need to get like an extra hour or two on this gameplay. You know, That kind of is what that smacks of to me. And I've never been a big fan of it in video games. And so I'm definitely not a fan of it when I see it in movies because it makes me think, I go to movies for plot and, a whole bunch of things. I don't go into it for that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the reason I stop playing certain games when they get too repetitive. And so that for me was something more so. Although you do get that nice bar scene. And that bar scene was pretty nice. And you're dead. Okay. I don't know what I want to do. Oh, shit. Shooting at me. Over here. How am I missing this guy? All right. Yeah. So not much to say about Suicide Squad. I think a lot of it's been said already, but I'm trying to fill some time here. On second thought, I maybe should have watched some more films before doing the 1 hour review-a-thon. But if you like this format, then suggest me films you'd want me to review, and I'll pick up like 4 or 5 of them. And we'll try to do this again. I got a little bit more prep time. Prep time is everything, man. Again, you give Batman enough prep time, he can kill everybody, apparently. So I think you should treat me the same way. Just gonna blame it all on prep time. Oh, there we go. Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm back, and this shit is a pain in the ass. I should have just put up some Minecraft. That might have been easier. But hey, I've been on a Mountain Blade Warband kick lately, so yeah. Batman v Superman, I think better than a lot of people gave it credit for. Suicide Squad, equally good, but the fan reaction has been a little bit more decidedly positive on that. So I don't think I'm really out of the ordinary there. And then finally for some Hail Caesar. This movie I really had a good time with. I don't know if I liked it as much as I liked a what was it? Fudge, give me a minute. A lot of people partner this movie up with a serious man, saying that a serious man was kind of their take on the Jewish faith in the Old Testament, and Hail Caesar is much more of kind of a New Testament kind of thing. And I could kind of see that, but I think I like the serious man more. But I'm more of a morose guy. I really like that kind of man. I'm just fucking too tired for this shit right now. I just kind of like that's I guess serious shit a little bit better. Also, me kind of leaning in and out of communism. I did kind of have some trouble with that part of the film as well, but it was enjoyable. I'll say that much. Yeah, I don't know. I'm out of shit to say here. All right. I'm gonna hang this up.